So I know we're supposed to draw some lessons learned and all of that, or some strategic implications. Do we need to? Probably getting late, so we probably need to go.
Yeah, but we're getting pretty late. But you told the other group we talked about Bremer a little bit, and so like when you went home, but that was the kind of the beginning of the realization that we don't really know what we're going to do next, right? Tell us a little bit about how Bremer came in as the somewhat governor and.
Well, so first they started with Jay Garner, but so remember some of the assumptions, right? It was going to be easy. We were going to dislocate or outmaneuver the Iraqis. So most of the Iraqi army was going to still be there to maintain order and discipline in Iraq. The Iraqi government, if not the Iraqi government, State Department was going to be fully mobilized to run Iraq afterwards. Again, we didn't even know which government we were going to hand off to, but all these strategic assumptions that went into that, and what happened was we disbanded the Iraqi army. We didn't defeat it in total, and so there were large elements of the Iraqi army, especially the Sunni, that didn't feel like they were defeated, and they feared for their lives because now the Shia were going to take over a country which this minority Sunni had led for 5 decades. So there were some real problems there. And we were going into de-Baathification, right? So we had mandated, Bremer had mandated, so Iraqi army disband, de-Baathify. Anyone who is a loyal member of the Ba'athist Party is no good, you're out. So anyone who knew how to run this country or maintain law and order in this country was gone, right? And remember, Shinseki said we needed at least 200,000 troops to stabilize. They said, no, you're crazy, you're fired. And so what we had was a very small military ground force. It was ill-prepared. The follow-on force was Task Force 7, right? Yeah, 7. Lieutenant General Ricardo Sanchez, Abu Ghraib occurred and all that bad stuff. They weren't prepared for it. They weren't ready for a large-scale stability operations, and which then turned into a counterinsurgency, which took years to adjust to. So you have to plan for, this is one of my sort of maxims, I guess, is this is doctrine first, which is you assault through the objective, not to the objective. You see your objective, you have to go through it, and you have to make sure it's sustainable. So as Paul was talking about sustainable competitive advantage, you can't sustain competitive advantage up to the objective, but you have to see the future beyond that. I just don't think that we did that. And as a professional military planner, these are some of the basic things. You make an assumption. Everyone makes assumptions. You have to. Some of the best planning is done that way because that's the parts of the environment you don't know about. You have to make those assumptions, but you have to be prepared to do something about them. And I just feel like we didn't do that. So that was one of the big takeaways there. What was the other thing we talked about with that group? I know we got kind of political for a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had a strategy for a campaign, but in our collective minds, the campaign was done and you went home. Yeah. We didn't have a strategy for phase 2, which was get this country back. And so why did we have all these inaccurate assumptions? Do we not have enough intelligence, or what? Why was Defense Department so unprepared?
So I think if you start at the very top, the shifting targets of policy. What were we going into Iraq for? When we first learned about the name of this, we were all surprised. Operation Iraqi Freedom, we're like, we're invading. Who cares about their freedom? That's not what it's about, right? Well, if we didn't know what it's about, how is anyone else supposed to know, you know? We were going to ensure that Saddam Hussein no longer employed weapons of mass destruction. And I think that there were probably some other stated objectives and sub-objectives, but that was one of the primary things. He would no longer pose a threat to the region. Now, politically, I will state this. These days, we call a pressure cooker bomb a weapon of mass destruction. So did Saddam use weapons of mass destruction based off of the new scale of what one is? Yes. It is well documented. He used chemical weapons and biological weapons against many people. He killed many people. He utilized WMD, and there were WMD there when we got there. Not nuclear. There was no nuclear, but there was biological and chemical. But again, that's again, that's a political statement. It's done. What we went for was to ensure he no longer could use those, and he didn't pose a threat to the region. The best way to do that was to topple him. Well, I'm not sure we even had said that at that point. You know, and then what to do about the government afterwards and everything else is you know, again, up in the air. So yeah, I think the strategy was misaligned from the policy. Rumsfeld was interrupting the strategic to the operational because he was getting too involved for political purposes. So once policy stops, strategy formulation is supposed to begin, and then from that, you develop a strategy, which then develops your campaigns to implement the strategy. It's not removed from the policymakers, but the policymakers are supposed to state clearly up here so that those who craft the strategies can do their work. You can't do it if the policies keep changing all throughout. Any other questions, guys? I know it's been late, so I apologize. I'm long-winded. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.